This is the story of a Book Nook disaster. After last week's Lord of the Rings Book Nook, I had so much success that I wanted to dive in and do another one, and we decided to do Waterloo. My wife and I are both big fans of Bernard Cornwell's Waterloo book, both his non-fiction book on Waterloo and also his fiction. There is a formation the troops do in Waterloo called forming square, where the troops would get into double ranks, one in front of the other, and they would get into squares so that the cavalry, you'll see in this picture, the cavalry could not flank them. The cavalry would just run around them and could never pierce the center of them. And so I wanted to do that as a book nook. And that was a disaster idea in and of itself. So I painted these. This is kind of a win here. I learned a technique from Jeremy on Black Magic Crafts about holding the models close to your chest to keep your hands from shaking, which was a big help. But I started putting it together, and you're going to see here a mistake that I make early on that is going to have far-reaching disastrous effects. One big mistake that I make, you always hear the phrase measure twice, cut once. I'm more of the measure once, cut twice until you make it work, and it's not the best of ideas. So I'm cutting things out. I have things laid out, putting them on the wood, and right here, that is the error, is where I put that mirror on. And we're going to see how that mirror affects the disastrous effects of this Waterloo scene. So I'm putting on the base. The goal of this is to have a square where I put on models in kind of an L shape to form two sides of the square, and then the mirror on the 45-degree angle is going to show the other half of the square, so that when you look through the book nook and you look in the mirror, you see the troops in a square, and the cavalry is charging against them, and it's supposed to look really cool. And so in theory, it's a good idea, but the construction of it was all flawed. And the theory was also bad in the fact that what I was tackling was really more of a diorama and not really appropriate for a book nook. It was too big in scale, as we'll soon see. So I'm putting together the sides, putting it all, measuring it to fit. Happy with how it all works. This is me getting Sculpt-A-Mold. This is when things are working well in the project. Sculpt-A-Mold is a modeling compound that you get wet. It's like plaster, but it's a quick-drying modeling compound. So I'm making a slope that the cavalry is going to be charging up to get to the troops who are going to be standing in the square. And this is all going well, and I'm happy with it, and I'm enjoying the process. And I mean, the thing is that this project is a huge learning curve. Like, I learned so much from this disaster. I'm painting the sides here. I need to have scenery because the walls are going to be landscape, the landscape of Waterloo. So painting those, painting the ground. But this was, as much of a disaster as this project was, I learned a ton from it. And I don't want to play that down by the fact that it was such a disaster. Like, I feel so much more ready to go into new book nooks now, having learned the mistakes of this one. Because there were a lot of mistakes in this one, but I learned a ton. And I feel much more ready. So this is me. This is one thing I wasn't very satisfied with, was the landscape. I am an oil painter, long time, and I feel like this is just such a slipshod attempt at landscape painting, and done with. I'm an oil painter, and this is done with acrylic paints that dry super fast that I'm not happy with, and I'm good at landscapes on oils that are much more detailed, and this is just, I'm not happy with these landscapes at all. So now I've got the modeling compound dried. I apply PVA glue, and this is when I'm putting down the grit, which I've talked about in previous episodes, which really covers up a lot of crimes. It covers up all the seams that you have between the modeling compound and the foam. Putting down sand and rocks. You don't put down too much, and it's fine sand, but it's just enough to cover it up. Then you paint that once it's dry. Paint it in the same color that I painted the mountains on the walls, so that it matches, and it should all look good. And right now I'm feeling pretty confident, and I'm going to feel more confident as time goes on. And the thing is that I felt pretty good throughout the whole process. It was once I got it together that things started to really look wrong. I mean, I wasn't happy with the landscapes that I painted, but I was happy with the modeling, the sculpting here that I did, and the additions of the grass, which I'm going to add here in a moment. So that now I'm adding grass tufts, and these are just static grass, and well, I'm adding rocks also. But this was a good process that made a kind of a barren green wasteland look like a grassy field. And it was just the addition of tons and tons of these, I mean, a whole package of grass tufts, and it ended up looking pretty good. And right now I'm like, this project is coming together. I can really see this. I can really feel this going on. And I'm really happy with it. See? And so it looks good. All the grass tufts are down. As soon as I get the soldiers in, things are going to look really good. So now I'm putting in the soldiers, my British infantry. And I'm putting them in that L shape so that they will form a square when the mirror is put in. I want you to guess what the problem is by looking at this picture. I mean, there are numerous problems, but there's a big one here in this picture. The models were really good. Came from Perry Miniatures, who makes great stuff. I enjoyed painting them. I don't have the best hands for detail, and so while I can paint like a World War II soldier really well, a Napoleonic figure like this that has so much trim and so much detail rather than just camouflage, there's the cavalry going in, was a little bit harder to put together for me to paint. But I painted them. I was really proud of them. I was happy with how it was going together. Putting in the mirror and going to put the whole thing together. Gluing on the sides now. It's all coming together, and now there's another problem. You can see that panel that I'm putting on is bowed. That foam panel that is painted is not perfectly flat and straight. And so when I put it on the wall, it is not flat and straight. And there are other problems that come up about when I put on the wood panels, that they are not flat and straight either. And so I have since, for my new book Nook projects, I've switched over to a different style of wood. This is a cheap BB birch that really is not high quality and not good for woodworking. you can kind of see in these pictures that that wood is not perfectly straight, and so when I'm putting it all together, it doesn't fit neatly at the seams. Now I'm trying to put the front on. I've put the box together. I never show you a look of what it looks like in the book Nook, because once I looked in the book Nook and saw, I mean, at this point I'm putting it together, and right now I'm feeling really bad because I've looked in that book Nook and I know what it looks like, and I'm really unhappy. And so I'm putting together this front piece. I know I shouldn't be carving there on my leg, and I am, and I apologize. Don't follow my bad example. And I'm putting on the front piece, and I'm feeling really bad about how this looks, knowing that it's not good, and putting it together anyway. So let's follow up and see what happens. So, that was an all-around disaster. This is the final product. I didn't take pictures of me disassembling this because I was in a really foul mood. I came to a couple of major learning points. And that's what I want to get at with this, is that this is a learning opportunity. I feel like I have learned a ton about book nooks from this failure. And even though I admit that I spent 2 days really pissed off that this didn't work, I feel like I know now how to make book nooks work. The first problem with this is that it was just too wide. I've chopped off half of it because I was trying to fix it, but it was too wide. And because I wanted to get the whole shot of everything going on in the Nook, I wanted it to be a big diorama-ish piece, and it was just too wide. And then combine that with the fact that this is not a 45-degree angle. It's like a 35-degree angle or a 30-degree angle. And so the problem was, when you looked at it head on, it not only didn't make the square a square, it made it a skewed rhombus, but it also made it so that if you were looking at it, it reflected and you could see yourself in the mirror over here. So in this corner of the mirror, where the mirror was, you could see yourself, which just ruined the whole look of the book Nook. So that was a learning lesson too. And then the third learning lesson was I foolishly I had made it tall. I had made it 10 inches tall, and then I had decided that it was just too big. And that was another thing with this style of diorama, where I was trying to do a whole diorama rather than just a book Nook, and it was just too massive, and so I shrunk this height down. But the problem is that so much is back, and it also is up on this slope, that you really had to bend down and look at it to get a good look at it, and it wasn't effective. And so a lot of learning mistakes in this. I don't feel like it is a complete waste of time because I learned so much from it, but it was definitely a frustrating thing. When I finished it and realized all the problems with it, I just wanted to throw the thing away. I was so upset with it. But I spent a lot of time painting the miniatures. I like the miniatures. I think they look good. And so I'm going to keep the miniatures, maybe revisit this in a future episode and make a new book Nook. But I'm going to have to really seriously reconsider the scale and scope of something that really is more wargame terrain than book Nook. I was really stretching the bounds of what a book Nook is, and and it just was a failure. But I learned a lot from it, and I'm happy that I did it, because now I have a new bookneck project that I'm going into next week, and now I feel like I am much more ready to tackle that project. I know now the importance of that 45-degree angle. I know the importance of height. I know the importance of not making it too wide. I know the importance of not cramming it too full of models. So it's a learning experience, iterations, not failures, and I'm happy with what I learned. Not happy that I've ruined a whole weekend on a project that didn't go anywhere, but there we go. So anyway, thanks for watching.